Dr. Seger, I'd like to present you with the Candlelight Award.
Oh, that is beautiful. So thank you so much. I thought we had to go to heaven, and we got that, at that point. I didn't expect to get it at this point in my life. So I'm very thrilled, and I'm very thrilled also to share this evening with the filmmakers whose films we are going to see. When I first got the news that I was going to be awarded with this Candlelight Award, I felt a little bit like the father in The Christmas Story. If any of you know that, he's told, you're going to get a major award, and he dances around the living room. And you might remember that his award also had to do with light, but it looked quite different than mine. I was surprised when I got this phone call. First of all, I was surprised because I didn't think Regents University had ever heard of me. Secondly, I was surprised because it never occurred to me I would get an award because I don't fit any categories. And thirdly, I was surprised because I sensed that what this award was about was not just for the works, but perhaps for the spiritual work behind the works. And I was surprised about this because spiritual work to me is always very private, is very quiet, is very solitary, and it surprises me if anybody knows that it's going on at all. But as I've reflected on my professional life the last couple months, I got to thinking that almost every professional movement in my drama has been in some way pushed, motivated, led, guided, shoved, or forced by my relationship with God. In a sense, I saw that my dramatic external life was like a plot, and that my spiritual life was like a subplot that was constantly twisting and turning and moving it in many, many different directions. We might say that the catalyst for this whole journey really began when I was 19. I was a college student at Colorado College. I was passionate about theater and drama. I just loved it. I was a terrible actress. In fact, I was so bad that at one point they would not let me go on in acting to the next class because I'd gotten a C instead of a B. I was only sort of an ordinary student when it came to any other theater courses. And I kept thinking, how could I be so passionate about this? And is there any way that I could go into this field knowing that I'm really not the best? One day I was kind of praying about that in my college room, and I heard this little voice in the back of my head, and the voice said, your job is to keep the dream of drama alive. And I understood exactly what that was, because I sensed that drama was very profound, was very deep, and showed us something about our humanity. And I said, this is my job then, is to keep that magic, that humane dimension of what drama is about. So I went on in drama, and when I was a senior in college, I went through a spiritual crisis. I had grown up in a family that was Lutheran, and all through both sides of my family, we have missionaries, we have ministers, we have theologians, but I sensed that I didn't have a personal religion. What I had an inherited religion, and I wanted to find out, was it possible to have some kind of a personal relationship with God? In fact, I even wondered, did God exist, and how does one know that? So I went on a spiritual quest. The first thing I did was decide to take 6 months and call myself an agnostic. I thought that would help my quest to label myself. And the first thing I did was I wanted to know if I wanted to stay within the Christian religion. So what I did was I read a whole lot of books on religions of the world. It didn't take me very long to realize I wasn't being pulled anyplace else. So I decided now it's time to look very much into Christianity and to say, does God exist, and could one have a personal relationship? I had an acquaintance in college who was, I thought, going to a Unitarian church, and I thought, well, the way I'll start this search, I'll go to a lot of churches, and I'll just see if there's some place where there is some church that speaks to me and maybe helps me on this quest. So I asked her if I could go with her, and she says, well, I'm not going to the Unitarian Church anymore, I'm going to Bible church. I said, I don't care where I start, I'll go to the Bible church with you. So I did. And what the Bible church did for me was that it showed me that there seemed to be people who actually had a personal relationship with God and actually had a spiritual discipline. They were reading the Bible, they were praying, and something seemed to be happening. And what that did was begin to push me forward into saying, somehow I have to resolve this. So I was trying to think of, how do you prove that God exists? And I decided what I would do was to do a little test with God. So I was writing to somebody who was in Vietnam and hadn't heard from him for a while. So I figured out how long it would take for God to put the idea in his head to write to me, how many days it would take for the letter to get. I added a couple days, for problems in the postal office or him having a thick head. And so I figured it out on a particular Friday. If that letter came, then obviously it's answered prayer. If the letter didn't come, well, I'm back to where I started from. And every night I fervently knelt by my bed and I zealously prayed for that letter in order to know, does God exist or not? Thursday night I was at the end of my rope. If that letter didn't come, I didn't know where I was going to be. And again, I heard this little voice, and the voice said, go read Matthew 4:7. Now, I didn't know the Bible. If the voice had said, go read, the 23rd Psalm or something like that, I would have known that. I had no idea what Matthew 4:7 was. So I went and I opened up my Bible to Matthew 4:7, and it says, thou shalt not test the Lord your God. Now, I would say that's answered prayer. I said, I got it. And so I did. Shortly after that, I committed my life to Christ and to God and made a personal commitment and started really down my path. I went on, I got a master's from Northwestern in dramatic arts, and then I taught, in my first teaching job, was at a little Southern Baptist college in Phoenix, Arizona. While I was there, I got to thinking, I don't really have a church home. I've gone to many, many different churches, but I haven't really found the place that makes me feel like at home, like this is my place. So I decided once more to do what I'd done a couple years before, is to start going to a lot of different churches and seeing, where do I have that feeling this is where I belong. I went through the whole spectrum. I started with some churches. One was a very conservative church where the women told me that if their husbands told them to kill somebody, they would, because the Bible says they're to be submissive to their husbands. And I decided that was not where I wanted to go. I then went to a church where the man who was the head considered himself highly, highly righteous. But he spent most of the time running his wife down and also saying that anyone who disagreed with him was satanic. So I decided that was not where I wanted to be either. I had heard about Quakers, and I thought, well, I've never been to a Quaker meeting. I'll go and see what Quakers are about. So I went to the Quaker meeting in Phoenix on a Sunday, sat down, and I was home. I felt this was the right place for me. Now, it was the right place for me for a number of reasons. One was I was becoming incredibly self-righteous and a bit of a pain, and Quakers really are a very tolerant group. Secondly, it was very good for me because I'm extremely extroverted and quite energetic, and it centered me. I felt like I really didn't have a center, and I think that's what Quakers gave me. As time went on, they also helped me listening, which is a big thing in my consulting, finding a consensus among the group, because Quakers do everything by consensus, and in a sense that the Quakers helped me to learn what's the difference between a guide versus a guru. So after I became a Quaker, and as I was in teaching at the Southern Baptist College, I began to think that I needed to get more education. But I wasn't sure really where to go and how to, where did I want to go to do this? I had gotten very interested in the relationship between drama and theology. I wasn't so much interested in religious drama. I was interested in how secular drama communicated religious themes and ideas. Now, it's pretty hard to know where to go to find that. But I was also interested because I felt that Christianity was a very dramatic religion. It's a very socially involved religion. It's about the Word made flesh. And that's really what we do with stories, is that we incarnate ideas and, and images and sort of our value systems into these characters. So I heard about a seminary in Berkeley that had a degree in religion and the arts, but I couldn't really decide whether to go. I wasn't so sure that me, from a little town in northern Wisconsin, could handle Berkeley in the 1970s. So I just kind of waited for some kind of leading. What finally happened was we had a spiritual emphasis week at the Southern Baptist College, and I felt incredibly, not just moved, I was pushed, I was forced to walk down and to walk forward. And I wasn't sure why, because I didn't feel so much this was a rededication or recommitment of my life. But what I realized was I was forced to do that to get my ego out of the way. I could not hear what I was supposed to be doing. So I went forward, and a couple days later, as I was turning left on the freeway, I suddenly knew I'm going to seminary. Now the question became, is the Berkeley Seminary the right one for me? So I went to Berkeley to visit the seminary, and I began to feel it was there, but I sort of said, okay, God, you really want me to go here. Give me some sign. I was big on signs, So I was reading the book of Acts. I thought, well, I'm trying to become active. I guess reading the book of Acts is a good idea. And I came across this verse that said, go into the city and I will tell you what to do. Now, to me, the city meant the University of California at Berkeley campus, and the center of the city to me meant the library. So I went over to the library and I sat down and I waited. Pretty soon a man came up to me and said, would you like to go outside and talk? Now, I decided to see him as an angelic messenger and not a pickup line. So I said, okay, we'll go outside and talk. And we sat down, and I told him my dilemma. Should I come? And he said, you're ready, come. I said, okay. That was my answer. Now, I never saw this man again, but I did go to seminary, and I was there really for 5 years. Now, when I went to seminary, I really went with 3 questions in mind. The first question was, what am I to make of the Bible? That took me about 2 or 3 months, and I came to a conclusion that felt very comfortable for me. The second one was, what's the relationship between drama and theology? And that took about 4 years. And the third question was, what am I to make of prayer? And that took about 10 or 15 years to get an answer to that question.